All right, welcome into You Pod to Win the Game. I am Charles Robinson, senior NFL reporter for Yahoo Sports. He is Frank Schwab, senior NFL writer for Yahoo Sports. Frank, I don't know what's going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. It feels like it is just all coming to an end. I don't know what to think when the Carolina Panthers deal away their best player on offense, unquestionably, who is healthy. Mm-hmm. They dealt away a wide receiver who clearly was having issues with the coaching staff, but is not talentless. Mm-hmm. They're starting, let's be honest, what was their third string quarterback in PJ Walker.
Yep.
And they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and not only beat them, but they beat them convincingly this weekend. 21-3 in Carolina. I want to make this a Carolina story, and we'll get to that. But is this is this the beginning of that?
Story
this is the beginning,
right?
Right?
This is oh my goodness, Tampa Bay is not good, and hey, we don't really want to talk about this, but is Tom Brady done? Honestly, we have to. I'm sorry. We were being, we've done this before at Brady, right? Maybe he's done, and then he goes on this streak and he ends up winning a Super Bowl, and we all look dumb at the end of the year. I can feel pretty confident in saying I can sit here on October 23rd and can say that this is not getting much better for Brady. This is not ending up how he wants it to end up. Now, the caveat in all this is the NFC South stinks, and the NFC as a whole kind of stinks, and maybe they just stumble onto some wins in January and it all ends up okay, but this is clearly not the same Tom Brady. And we can't, I've talked about this with you, Charles. We can't use the injury excuse. I hear it all the time.
Nope.
Brady's missing Ryan Jensen. Who cares? Go to any team in the NFL. They're missing guys right now. We're week 7. Okay. Guys are hurt. That's not the case anymore. He has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, who they paid a ton of money to, Leonard Fournette, 2 really, really good offensive tackles. Injury excuses out the window. This is who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are, and it is not good. They just got blasted by the worst team in football. The Carolina Panthers are clearly the worst team in football coming into this game. They still might be the worst team in football, but Tampa Bay looked awful against them, and then everything else. You're bringing up, Tom Brady going to Bob Kraft's surprise wedding, taking time off during training camp, that he doesn't seem all in. And none of that stuff matters if you're winning. But when you put up 3 points against the Carolina Panthers, and it's a garbage 3 points basically at the end of the game, then all this stuff comes back on you. And I think we have to have a serious, this isn't 2015 Peyton Manning still. Okay. Brady's not incompetent. He's able to go out there and throw the ball a little bit, and they're able to put up some yards, but this is maybe 80% of the guy who won, finished second in NFL MVP voting last year. It's clearly not the same Brady. We can't use the injury excuse anymore. This is who the Buccaneers are, and they're a very mediocre football team.
Yeah. I can't, if you're going to use the injury excuse, explain how you lose to Carolina.
Right.
Carolina, even injured, doesn't matter. Carolina's offensive line, not good. Offense has not been productive. Again, starting the number 3 quarterback, who, by the way, weren't we talking about last week? He basically didn't throw any passes past the yard line of scrimmage.
He
basically
completed 2 passes beyond the
line of scrimmage.
1 yard beyond.
Yeah,
it was basically insane. He was just checking down every single play, and this one he looked fine. The Buccaneers defense wasn't good either, but that's not the headline, because we have a 45-year-old quarterback who all of a sudden you're like, this is what we were kind of worried about for years and years. And what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I wrong to sit here and say wow, we're dealing with a really diminished Tom Brady here?
I held off because, for a while, because it was the injury thing. I'm like, okay, well, look, let's wait. Let's wait and see, once he's got his complement back in there. Okay. And I sat there and I watched quite a bit of this game, and I thought to myself, is this, I don't want to keep bringing up Rob Gronkowski, but that guy can't be that important, right? And the thing is, we have to be realistic about this. Gronkowski was an extremely important part of Tom Brady's career from the moment he entered in the league until the first retirement, the second retirement. He was a steadying go-to guy who helped Tom get into rhythm. He was in tough spots. He was always there to make big catches. He blocked well. I think, and to be completely honest with you, I think having Rob Gronkowski around made Tom Brady a happier person. When you would watch, they did last year, they did those little skits, like, I think it was the last 2 years where it was like Tom and Rob, and they do the little videos and they'd be sitting outside talking about whatever. And there were buddies. Like every time, when they would go through those runs in the playoffs and get a big win, it was always Tom doing the selfie of him and Rob walking to the bus, right? They sat next to each other on the bus, the plane, all that stuff. Well, it's like his first best friend may be divorcing him. His second best friend just abandoned him. And then I don't really mean that by abandon him, but Rob hung it up, and there's no reason for Rob.
And there's another guy who he called his friend who's trolling him on Twitter every time, Antonio Brown. Like, I don't even want to get that guy excited, the kind of name. But I mean, but that's the thing with Brady. Look, I've written literally probably a million nice words about Tom Brady. I'm the guy who stuck up for him in Deflategate. I've talked about how he's the best 41, 42, 43, 44-year-old quarterback of all time. All these nice things about Tom Brady. Call him the greatest quarterback of all time many, many times. So I'm not just one of these dudes that piles on Tom Brady, but we've gotten to the point, too, where everything's an excuse for Tom Brady this year. It was like, oh, Rob Gronkowski's gone. We're not doing this for Patrick Mahomes all year or Tyreek Hill. We're not doing this we are a little bit doing it with Aaron Rodgers or Devontae, Adams, but we're not doing it like every time Dak Prescott plays, we're not going to be like always without Amari Cooper. But it's always like, oh, well, they have his center's gone and his tight end retired. Well, that's fine. Other guys around the league are dealing with this stuff, too, and they don't look this bad. I mean, and this was a bad loss, a horrendous loss. I thought last week was kind of rock bottom for the Buccaneers losing to the Steelers, who weren't very good. This is rock bottom. When you lose 21-3 to the Panthers, oof. And again, how does it get better? How is this really turn around? And it's like, well, Tom will figure this out. Well, I don't know what there is to figure out, especially when you're 45. And look, the history of 45-year-old quarterbacks is literally non-existent. None of them had ever started a game before Tom Brady. The only player 45 years or older to throw past an NFL game was George Blanda. He was 7 of 18 for 116 yards after his 45th birthday. So Brady is still unbelievable.
Which means he's still the best 45-year-old ever in the history of the NFL to play quarterback. Frank,
nothing against Brady. This is he had to hit the wall at some point, and I think it's happening.
Well, we are entering the clarifying run starting next week. Okay, so this is it right now. What's going to happen? And not because it's soft, because it's difficult. I think this is it. They go into the bye in week 11, right? But before they get there, they got to play Baltimore. Okay, hell of a lot better team than they just faced in the Carolina Panthers. They got they go play the Los Angeles Rams, who November 6th, but that's after the trade deadline, and I would not be surprised, given the Rams actually made the call on Christian McCaffrey, might actually try to go and get something at the trade deadline to make themselves a little bit better. But again, it's still the Rams, a better team by far than the Carolina Panthers. And then a Seattle team November 13th.
What the heck?
I mean, they're first place in the division. I don't even know.
That is one of the most unbelievable stories in football.
One of the greatest. By the way, their draft class is just crushing. Their draft class from this last draft is just destroying it when you look at the output and the key roles all those guys are playing. But again, those are three games.
Like you said, 3 games against better teams, but vulnerable teams too. The Ravens aren't blowing anybody away, and the Rams have their issues, and the Seahawks. So the Buccaneers could win these games. Like, if you are the team that is going to make a run in January, well, okay, show us. Like, these 3 games they're winnable. They should be if you're expected to be any kind of a contender. I just don't think they are. I think they're going to win that division because the division stinks, but I don't think they're any good. I think that it's just, early, like you said, early in the season, we were patient. We're injuries. And once they get everybody back, they're going to look better. They looked terrible last week, and they look worse this week. And I just don't see how it improves.
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to find out those 3 weeks, though. Like, to me, it's they could very easily lose all 3 of those going into the break, and we could just be like, yo, it's over. Like, this is it. It's done.
It could get worse for Brady from here. It really could. Like, I mean,
absolutely.
I hate that. I don't want to feel like I'm piling on. Like, oh, I'm doing a victory lap now because he's 45 and he finally hit the wall. But it just does seem that way. This isn't. Again, he's not awful. He's still perfectly reasonable. But that guy who led the NFL in passing yards, passing touchdowns last year, he ain't coming back. I don't think anyway. I can't see it happening. I will say one thing real quick before we move on. I know we probably need to do that. Buck Carolina, Steve Wilkes, kudos. I mean, we can sit here and talk about the Buccaneers, and they're obviously the focus here because the Panthers aren't going anywhere this year. But for Steve Wilkes to get that team to believe it could win this game and to execute the way they did and win this game, hey, I don't think either of us think he has a great shot of winning that job full time, if any. But it doesn't hurt to take a team that traded on Thursday night, your best player by far, and to come out Sunday and win. I believe they closed as like 13-point underdogs. Win straight up by 18 points. Hats off, man. Hats off to Steve Wilkes. Impressive job by him today.
Yeah, no question. And I think, look, he was very decisive. You know, the Robbie Anderson thing. When I talked to somebody there, when all that stuff happened on the sideline, it was clear. Like Wilkes is like, nope, like just decisive about it. He's like, we're done. Like we got to move on. Like find a team for him. Like get this thing finished. And you know, because we can't. He is all about eliminating whatever distractions are going on in that locker room, whatever's going on between the coaches on the coaching staff. All those different things. I think he was very decisive when he stepped into the role, and whatever the roster is, whoever they play with, I do like the fact that I think he was asked after the game about PJ Walker, or he was just talking about PJ Walker, and he said, something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's going to be hard to just take him out of, just take him out now. And I would agree. I'm like, you just got a quality win, leave him in. Like, what's the at this point, what's the difference? Like, you can take him out for who? Baker? You can take him out for Darnold?
Sammy.
Like, I mean, no, just whatever, roll with it, man. Like, if people were clearly, when you read what some of the reporters were saying post the win, like they were amped. Like, clearly the team felt like this had to feel like the greatest thing ever, given everything that's been going on. So
that's why people get tanking wrong. Players don't tank, man. Coaches don't tank. They want to win. It feels good on Monday to come in with a win. They don't care who you're drafting in April. Like the front office.
No, none of those guys.
But none of those people get it wrong. Like, oh, the Panthers is going to go. No, they want to win. They want to feel good on Monday. They want to. They have pride, and it was. I felt good for the Panthers, and especially Steve Wilkes, as I said. We should swing it to the next game. We could talk about another quarterback who might be hitting the wall. The guy who finished ahead of Brady in the MVP voting last year. Aaron Rodgers had a miserable game, and the Packers lose 23-21 to Washington. I mean, the Panthers, the Bucs loss to the Panthers was a lot worse, but this one was really bad too. And the Packers are 3-4 now. Aaron Rodgers had 47 yards passing at the half. Didn't really do much after the half either. He had the whole, he's looking at the sideline over and over saying, kind of what the F are we doing? All this kind of stuff. I don't know, man. At what point do we just say, maybe Aaron Rodgers isn't the guy? He's the guy with the $150 million extension. I don't care. Yeah, Romeo Doubs dropped a pass. So what? Like, if you come back and you want to make $50 million a year on this 3-year extension, doesn't matter who you're playing around anymore. You could have taken a lot less and maybe kept Devontae Adams around, but you didn't. So how much of this goes on Rodgers? How much do we start to say, is this guy slipping? I believe he's 38 now.
Look, I wrote last week that they just need to give in to him and let him do what he wants with the offense. I saw a little bit of the game. What little bit I saw, they were still running motion offense, which is clearly not what he wants. He wants to run West Coast and just get back to the obvious select things, go to the line of scrimmage, figure out what he wants to do as a quarterback, diagnose it, take it back to just the basics of a West Coast offense and run it with precision and get guys to, be in the spots they're supposed to be in. Doesn't want to, it was clear as day going back to August. He doesn't want any part of this motion offense stuff. And it was funny because I watched more of it after kind of analyzing it and writing what I wrote last week. I watched more of it through those eyes. Like, let me see, like, what is bothering him? It takes a while to snap the ball. The tempo is flat. Like, it is very flat tempo, but he's part of the problem too. But that's my thing. You want to clarify this. You just say to the guy who's bitching and complaining or who has a problem, which, by the way, he did come out afterward and say, like, he still believes that they can pull it together and be a playoff team and all these things. But if he's not happy with something, or he's looking at the sidelines, or he's pissed off about certain players, then just say, you know what? Okay, we're going to turn it over to you. We're going to do what you want to do. And if it doesn't get fixed, shut up. Like, then you're part of the problem, bro. Like that's just reality. So, it is. I mean, it's concerning though. Like, you can't have Taylor Heineke outplay you. The Green Bay defense had some moments in this game, by the way, where, there was some moments where I'm like,
touchdown in this game. You should
two.
beat the Washington Commanders when that happens. Come on.
Yeah, they should have had 2 defensive touchdowns. I mean, like it's just, look, what was interesting to me was that the last play, they're running around, whatever, it doesn't work. And Rodgers is just flat, like just laying there on the ground, head in the grass. Like, there's guys trying to pick him up and he's not moving. And you're thinking, like, did something happen to him? No, he was just like, this is my life. Like, this is my football life that I'm dealing with right now. So, it's somebody asked me, is there like any good NFC teams? And I'm like, I don't know. One, like, we know one for sure. And I would have put
maybe the one in Dallas, maybe.
Yeah, but
they weren't great. But
I don't think it's not the Packers.
The whole Packers Buccaneers thing is really interesting because the parallels. We thought these might be the 2 best teams in the NFC, and had 2 guys who finished 1-2 in the MVP voting last year, and both of them are at an age when, especially Brady, where you got to worry, when's he going to hit the wall, and they're not so bad that we're like, oh yeah, that's the problem. But they're also not good enough where you're like, they're the solution either. I mean, we're just not. I don't know. I don't know if I can predict either of these teams to turn around. Other than, well, the NFC stinks, so maybe they get in the playoffs.
Here's one parallel too. Neither offense can produce explosive plays.
No. I mean,
one.
The Packers are a little bit better at it. And I mean, I will say, not to go back to a game, but Mike Evans catches that first pass. Like, okay, that does change the tenor of the game. That's on him. But you're right. This is not. Neither of these offenses are putting any fear into any defensive coordinators. Like, they're just like, whatever. They're going to dink and dunk, and it's not going to be very efficient. And
Frank, not catching the pass is part of not producing explosive plays. Right,
but that's not Brady. That's not. I mean, Brady put the ball.
No, I said the offense. I didn't say the quarterbacks. I said the offenses.
Well, I'm talking about the quarterbacks because both these guys. I don't know, man. It's not like they're, just so bad that you might have to bench them for Brock Osweiler, like Peyton Manning back in the day. But I don't think either guy is anywhere near what they were last year. And again, I don't know if that improves. I just don't know. They're both, again, at an age. Brady's just a freak, so it took him longer. But Rodgers is at an age when most quarterbacks are hitting the wall. And that might be happening. So I don't know. Would you pick the Packers or Buccaneers to be in the NFC Championship game? Could you foresee a situation where either one turns it around? And which one?
Man, that is a really good question.
The talent's still there, right?
Well, sort of, but they're both missing, key components. I mean, again, I know people don't want to hear this, but I do think Gronk not being there is f***ing up Brady's head. And all this other stuff that's going on as well. And then I look at Rodgers and I think Adams not being there has manifested itself. I think him not liking the offense that he runs, but gritting his teeth through it the last couple of years. Now it seems like he doesn't want to do that anymore. Also is part of what's going on right now. And no, I honestly, I hate to say this on October 23, because there's so much football left ahead of us, and the NFL season always has a way of proving us wrong every time we like someone or don't like someone. So we're just let me go ahead and break the streak now. Yeah, no, I wouldn't put either of these teams in the NFC Championship game. Now enjoy the streak that you go on of wins. That's how I would answer.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Jaguars haven't won since we. Jaguars are gonna go like 2-15, and it's all our fault. Yeah.
All right, I want to move on, but Taylor Heineke, just give him the job, okay? We just give him the job.
So?
Yeah, just give him the job the rest of the season.
Then why trade all that for Carson Wentz? You had Taylor Heineke.
I mean, whatever. I don't like. I don't care. I like what the offense looks like with it. Do you want to win games? Okay, like you just won a big game. I played pretty well. I like the energy on the offense a lot.
Yeah, they ran well. Gibson was really good today. Yeah. Brian Robinson ran with a lot of heart. Great play to McLaurin for the big touchdown they had.
If you're not going to peel off some of these guys at the trade deadline, and I don't even know how many, Gibson, maybe you could get nothing. If you want to get rid of him, somebody would throw you like nothing for him. Deron Payne. There's a couple of a couple of guys here and there, but nothing. You're really not going to have a lot of trade deadline interest. The bottom line is, do you want to win or not? If you want to win, just leave him in there. Let the energy do what it's going to do. I just Wentz is done there. So to me, if Wentz is done, why are you going to ride it out with Wentz? Screw it. Go back to the energy guy. Bench, Carson's ass when he comes back, and they got time to figure it out anyway. Because it's going to be obviously sidelined. So
it's one of those things, though. I mean, this is probably more for the Wednesday pod, but with Washington in particular, like everybody has to feel like they're in the race. Like, who's going to be selling? The Washington Commanders 3-4. It's
getting closer.
Why can't we make the playoffs?
It's getting closer. Trust me. There's some guys now. Like they're starting to circle some guys and some teams. You can tell when you talk to guys that you're starting to see how it's going to shape up. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of movement, but it's interesting. Anyway, swing it over. Kansas City just thumped. I mean, this was San Francisco traded for Christian McCaffrey, but they need a hell of a lot more than Christian McCaffrey, and he can't play quarterback. And Jimmy Garoppolo was not good in this game. 44-23. You go into San Francisco if you're Kansas City, and you just put one on them. I think, to me, it solidifies to me the trio of great teams. The teams we believe in, the teams that we really like, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Eagles. The Chiefs absolutely 100% belong there. I thought this was a fantastic game where even the defense, I'd be curious. Like, that defense, to me, I think has the potential, if you make a deadline rental pickup, and there's going to be a couple of decent defensive players that I think you could pick up as rentals. And it could really, I think, turn the key on what that defense could potentially do after November 1st and down the stretch. But I think San Francisco is a good team, but their defense just absolutely got done in this game. It was crazy.
Charles, Patrick Mahomes' last 7 possessions, he didn't finish the game because they were up so much that they could take him out. Last 7 possessions for Patrick Mahomes in this game against a 49ers defense, and I said a couple weeks ago, I thought it was the best defense in the NFL. They're pretty clearly not
good
the best
coordinator
defense.
Too.
Yeah, good coordinator, good defense. Last 7 possessions of this game. Touchdown, missed field goal, touchdown. You think Patrick Mahomes still pretty good, right? Like, I mean, that was an unbelievable performance by the Chiefs. I mean, to just, like you said, put it on them. Like they just, there was a 3rd and 20. We're like, okay, the 49ers get back in this game, and Jerick McKinnon goes for 20, however many yards on a screen pass to get the first down. There's a 3rd and 11 after Bosa's sack on first down, and they're like, okay, 49ers going to get off the field, and he hits Marquez Valdez-Scantling for, I believe, 57 yards. It's just, this team is really good. Yeah, there's 3 teams in a circle of trust right now, and that's it. It is 3 you said. Cowboys are kind of on the fringe, and nobody else. Like, whoever the 5th best team in football is, I don't even know, but the Chiefs are clearly a Super Bowl contender. Their only problem is they're probably going to have to play at Buffalo later this year in the playoffs, which they can win. They can win. Patrick Mahomes is good enough to win on the road at Buffalo, but clearly Kansas City's fantastic. I don't know what to make of San Francisco. I mean, I sit here and I try. At some point, I hate the Bill Parcells line of your record is who you are, but you're 3-4. You're a 3-4 football team. Like, you made that trade for Christian McCaffrey like you're a Super Bowl contender. Well, then win some games. Don't lose in Atlanta. Don't get thumped at home by the Chiefs.
You are in the NFC, and I'm like, look, if you're 3-4, I'm okay with you feeling a lot better being in the NFC and being 3-4,
right?
Because like every team, I mean, the NFC is just trash.
It's bad.
The last team in the playoffs.
You make this all in trade. Like, you can't, like, okay, if you lose by a field goal to the Chiefs, all right, their Chiefs are really good. They got blasted in this game.
Yeah,
it basically did not stop Patrick Mahomes the entire game, other than picking him off on that first possession. It was embarrassing.
And the thing is, Jimmy Garoppolo, it's not like, and I bagged on Jimmy too. It's not like Jimmy. He was not like straight up like horrible 17 for 34, 190 yards or anything. Like, statistically, probably because he had to keep throwing. The box score scouting looks good, but when you watch the game, you're like, dude, the comparison between these 2 quarterbacks is a joke. It's not even they're not even playing the same game. Oh, they're not. If these, and I sat there and I'm like, all right, well, let's say that the 49ers do make a run. what if they run into this team in the Super Bowl? You're still going to have Patrick Mahomes, who's taking other teams' cast-offs, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's making these guys, look great, look like viable pieces again. And then, you have Jimmy, frankly. I mean, he's surrounded by great players on offense.
Imagine
Debo,
Mahomes,
Kittle, CMC.
Yeah,
Debo,
Ayuk. I mean, imagine Mahomes with that group. Like, it's unbelievable. So I think it's a weirdly constructed team in that the 49ers made the Super Bowl. Garoppolo could have won it if they, covered jet ship wasp on third down. They made the NFC Championship game, and they probably go to the Super Bowl if Trubisky catches an interception. But it always just feels like their ceiling is so limited because of Jimmy. It's just, you don't trust him to make the plays. When you do get in a game like this when you got to go toe-to-toe against a Patrick Mahomes, he's not keeping you in that game. Like, that's just not going to happen. So, I don't know. What did you think of the trade? Like, you called it. You said, the San Francisco 49ers felt like maybe just a running back away. They gave up a lot for this guy. I mean, that's the kind of trade you make when you're like, we are Super Bowl contender with Christian McCaffrey. And I don't know. Well, I guess it's tough to take from a 3-14.
What's funny is that, so I know it was reported out there that the Bills weren't there at the end or whatever. So the Bills, it was like, hey, if you're going to do it, give us a call. Just give us a call and let us know. If it's sort of that thing, well, give us a call. And if you're really giving them up for nothing, then maybe we're going to get involved. But essentially what happened was the Panthers really wanted to get, if they could, a first round pick out of him. And they did in the aggregate. That's a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth.
Pick, I saw somebody do the math.
Yeah, the math when you do the points. I mean, it's a very, very good return for him, and particularly considering his injury history, the fact that they have to pay him. I mean, they don't have to, but I mean, his base salary is what it is. At the very least, they got to start a fight with him to get him to take less money. But in my mind, what I thought was, again, just focusing it through the NFC, it gives, Jimmy has a sick set of skill position players around him. And although McCaffrey, I would not say it's classical in terms of particularly given how Kyle uses running backs and who he sticks with and who he doesn't, and just sort of his really interesting nature when it comes to, rotating guys in and out or whatever. He can be more creative with Christian than any other running back he's ever worked with. Okay.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
And so to me, and McCaffrey can be an absolute every down, 100% every down running. He can never leave the field if you're okay with that. So, I thought in NFC, it made a lot of sense to me. What I thought was interesting was when I started to talk to some other teams after the deal went down, once they got past the compensation, which was sort of why I think they felt the way they did. It was sort of everybody kind of had the same question. They're like, well, does this change how they're handling Jimmy and Trey? Or is this they're just all kind of going in, they're going all in now. And if they win the Super Bowl with Jimmy, whatever, cool. That's our parting gift. And we plug Trey in, and great. Now we got this guy who can work with Trey Lance and is just as versatile. I think the curiosity just kind of surrounded what are they doing? Are they going all in?
I guess that's my question too, of I don't hate in a vacuum trading for Christian McCaffrey. I don't even hate trading a lot for Christian McCaffrey. I know everybody kind of dunked on him because, it's a running back and he's broken down and look at all the draft picks. I don't hate it that much in a vacuum because Christian McCaffrey is one of the few guys in that position who's a true difference maker, a true tip the field type of running back. There aren't many.
He's healthy,
Barkley's doing it for the Giants now. Yep. And there's just a couple. Derrick Henry's done it for the past couple of years for the Titans. There are a few guys in that tier, and obviously Christian McCaffrey's one of them. But it's almost well, who are you? What do you think you're a Super Bowl contender? Because I guess I get it at times watching that team, but certainly not today. Certainly not last week. And I don't know. I don't know if they have that Super Bowl upside. And if you don't, well, why are you trading what amounts to? I saw somebody did a math and it was the equivalent of the 4th overall pick of the draft for Christian McCaffrey is what they gave up. I don't know that math is and people have different value sheets and all that, but they gave up a lot. They gave up a lot for him, and I think you only make that move if you're we're going to Super Bowl now. And I don't know. You're 3-4. Like, you better win some games to make this pay off. Let's swing it around because I know I get to these other games. New York Giants, man, what a weird, crazy seseason they're having.
It's so
Trail
weird.
into fourth quarter again and
so
somehow
weird.
win 23-17. Daniel Jones rushes for 107 yards. It's just one of those fun rides. It's almost like that Tebow year with the Broncos where you're like, I had no idea how this team's winning games.
Yeah.
It's fun. And they're doing it. They're in all these crazy close games, and all the coin flips go their way. What'd you think of this one? And I guess one main question we do have to ask is, let's say, okay, the Giants are 6-1. It's hard to screw up a playoff spot when you're 6-1. You're almost definitely going to the playoffs at this point. They go to the playoffs with Daniel Jones. They franchise him at $31 million next year. They try to sign him to what are they doing with Daniel Jones? This 6-1 team, playoff teams don't generally move on from the quarterback.
And not only that, I mean, like today, this Daniel Jones, like when you watched, he's running. I mean, we knew about all the athleticism that Daniel Jones had, the ability he had the ability absolutely to run and do all these different things. When he went into the draft and like, here's what his ceiling was. This was kind of like one of those weird ceiling games where you're like, wow, like he's like running for 100 yards, he's throwing for 200. He's looking kind of like a versatile, fun piece at quarterback. First off, I looked at their schedule and I don't see any way. There's no way in hell. I just don't see it that they don't win 10 games. Right. Like they are like, to me, and that to me is like the low. Like I'm like, let me give them sort of a low scale of how this season finishes. I'm like, they're going to win 10 games. They're going to be a playoff team. Like they would have to. I don't know how you
NFC, especially.
I mean, I don't know how you can screw that up when you look at the remaining schedule. And it's not like cream puffs. Like they do have. There's some decent teams left on the schedule. There's some teams that they should be favored against. But yeah, it is interesting if this is how Daniel Jones is going to play through the remainder of the season. I don't know. I don't really know how you view him. Like, I guess what I would compare it to is maybe how the Tennessee Titans, how they ultimately look at their quarterback. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, it's not, you have teams sometimes they have decent quarterbacks and they go, hey, well, look, he's not going to be a guy who's going to lead us to Super Bowls, and we're going to have to build great teams around him. We're going to have to play awesome defense. Ryan Tannehill's not going to be somebody who lights it up. He probably isn't even capable of doing the Joe Flacco playoff run, once in a lifetime. Okay. Once in a century, puts together 4 insane games and we win a Super Bowl. But if he could be like that Tannehill type, mm-hmm. and they have a run dominant, offense, and they can find pieces to accentuate them, and that defense, they keep building it the way that they've been building it. I don't know, like to me, maybe they keep them, but I don't think you have to franchise him, because I look at like who's going to pay him? Nobody's going to pay him.
That's a great point. Yeah. It's not like he's going to hit the open market and be like,
a bunch of teams are going to, honestly, what he is? He's probably Mitch Trubisky. Like, except he's going to start this season. And when I say he's Mitch Trubisky, what I mean is like, he's a quarterback or Marcus Mariota or whatever. Mm-hmm. He's a quarterback that teams will look at and they'll say, well, he's a good bridge. Like, he's a potential good bridge for us. Like, maybe there's going to be 5 first-round quarterbacks, right? Well, teams that are going to draft those first-round quarterbacks, they might be looking for bridges. Right. But I'm sorry, I just don't see it. I don't see a team, at least right now in late October, I don't foresee a team in March sitting there and going, man, he's available. And it being like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, no, right? 4-year, $120 million. No.
There's not going to be like a Kirk Cousins deal where all of a sudden you have a bunch of crazy teams that are terrible but just desperate for a quarterback, all of a sudden throw a ton of money at him. But it's also late October, and I don't know what this guy's really capable of. And I will tell you this, too. I remember when the Titans shifted over to Tannehill, because remember, they're trying to make it work with Mariota. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I was like, they're screwed. Like, they're just going to have to completely reboot. Like, they don't have a quarterback at all now. And then Tannehill did what he did, and all of a sudden I was like, they got a viable piece there. Maybe he can be a viable piece, but they're not going to have to franchise him. Man. Ain't nobody paying him that money.
No, you're right. You're right about that. It's just weird. That's all. It's just like, it just matches this Giant season where you're like, I don't really think much of their quarterback, but whatever. He makes the plays he has to make, and he does it at the right time. And on the other side of this, I mean, man, Jacksonville. If you would have told me 4 weeks
I don't know.
ago that Jacksonville would be 2-5 and we'd be doing the same old song and dance about Trevor Lawrence, is he blah blah. It's so disappointing. Absolutely positively disappointing. And in this game, like Travis Etienne looked awesome and they had the lead and they were pretty much in control of this game for the first 3 quarters. And then just to give it away, just I don't know, man. I don't think it's turning around for the Jacksonville Jaguars either. Let's put it that way.
He's got one. People are going to point at his rushing touchdowns or whatever, some goal line sneak, whatever. He's thrown 1 touchdown in 3 games.
Wow.
Like,
that's what happened last year. He had like that streak of like 8 games with like 1 passing touchdown. It was something crazy. Yeah, maybe he's just not it. Like, it's rare. It's so rare, Charles, for a guy who's that highly graded to miss. It really is. At least you're going to be a good, solid quarterback. You might not be a Hall of Famer, but you're going to be a good, solid quarterback if you're through history, if you're graded that high. I just don't know, man. You just want to see more. It's always, you expect like, okay, they get the ball at the end of the game and okay, now the Giants have taken a lead. You're the dude, go drive your team downfield and he just doesn't. It's very rarely happened where you're like, wow, Trevor Lawrence is that guy. He's had 2 great games against the Colts. He had the great game against the Chargers. The rest of his career has been really underwhelming.
Yeah, I don't. There's no way to argue it now. It is what it is. Like it's interesting because I live in Houston. They see Jacksonville. I have a chance to talk to people who consistently kind of break down film on the Jaguars, and I'm very much looking forward to what their answer is because I can't figure it out. I just can't. Like, to me, I'm just, like you said, the word is underwhelming. And when I watch, it's like, it is the same problems he was having last year. Once again, there's like red zone stuff again. Like he's having red zone issues again. And it's like, I thought that was going to be over. I like Doug Peterson as a player's coach, a quarterback coach, like all these things. And I don't know. I mean, maybe there is something that you and I just don't see right now that when other teams throw the film on, they can point at it and say, well, the surrounding pieces aren't as good as you think, or the offensive line's doing this, or the system sucks in this way. But yeah, it's obviously not on this level and it's a different type of situation, but the last time I can think of a guy going 1 who was supposed to be one of the greatest arm talents in the history of the NFL, would have been Jamarcus Russell, right? Like it was like, I went to that guy's workout and I listened to every single person walk out of that workout going, that is the craziest quarterback workout I have ever seen. Never seen a guy's arm like that. All these things, for a litany of other reasons, Jamarcus Russell doesn't work out, but it reminds me of a guy coming in the league where it's just like it's just, he's going to be it's going to be a revolutionary pick. You can, there's a lot of different reasons.
Not yet.
So, anyway, moving on. The Detroit Lions, you and I, we can just say this, okay? People can go back and listen to the podcast when Dan Campbell, I should have just trusted myself on this,
You should have. You were down on him. I tried to put him. And then you came along. And
I did because I started to eat the cheese, right? The Sean Payton, Bill Parcells, don't eat the cheese, right? I started to listen to people back home because I grew up in Michigan, and I'm asking people like, why? Like, why aren't you more pissed off about the record? And they start telling me all these different things. And then I, watch Hard Knocks, and I'm like, man, maybe I was just wrong. Maybe he needed this chance and just stick with them and it'll turn it around. I think that I feel like now 6 games in, 1-5, I was right. Like, the speeches are great and they're really motivational and all these different things. But then all of a sudden you just keep staring at the record and you're like, this ain't working. I don't know how else to possibly absorb what's happening there right now, other than they're just a really bad football team with a really bad quarterback, and the Dallas Cowboys beat them 24-6. Granted, it was in Dallas, but it was a game that you could see Dak is still
Right.
He's not.
This
he's
game was
not
there
right
for the
yet,
taking.
right?
It was there.
Yeah.
Like the Dallas Cowboys were not hitting on all cylinders
Not at
in this
all.
game.
Not at
But
all.
the Lions couldn't do anything about it. And they had that bad sequence where looks like they scored the touchdown. Oh no, he's down to one. Well, no big deal, right? Well, no, Jamal Williams fumbles at the goal line. DeMarcus Lawrence recovers. I will say this about the Lions coming into this year. Look, when I do these team previews, I really, really deep dive into teams, especially with the stats and all that. There were a lot of reasons to believe Lions were better than the record last year. They were terrible in close games, all this stuff that usually turns around, had a pretty good offseason, all this kind of stuff. So it wasn't just this blind hope. Like, there were real reasons to believe the Lions were going to be better this year, and they're just not. They're just, at least through the first month of the season, it was like, wow, the Lions are fun to watch. They score a lot of points. They've scored a touchdown 2 straight games now. Like, I do wonder, let's say, let's say they finish 4-13 again, right? Like somewhere in there. Dan Campbell doesn't come back for year 3 if they finish 4-13, right? Like, and that's got to be on the table right now. That this team doesn't look any better than a 4-13 team. I don't know how you justify bringing them back. And then what did the Lions do? They just reset this whole thing again. Like, oh, it's so bad in Detroit right now. I feel so bad for those fans. They deserve better than this.
I'll bet she comes back. I'm telling you. I bet.
But why?
I will,
if he's
he can
8 and what would his record be? That 8-25-1 or something like that. If they do finish 4-13.
He talks a good game. He's convincing. It's bad ownership. The team's always been bad ownership forever. If you look at, that entire organization. Here's what I think could happen that brings him back, and then we got to move on. But I think that somebody will whisper into ownership's ear, okay, let's line up all the different individuals that are in this front. Because it's such a mixed, weird sort of like, it's just a collection of a lot of voices. Like I'm still like, I could line up 5 or 6 people and I'm like, do they all have a say in the room? Because this is way too many. Like, there's just too many people right now, it feels like, who can touch the talent, who are involved in operations, decisions, roster, additions, like all these, the coaching staff. And I think they could point to that and somehow convince ownership to keep him one more year. But anyway, let's move on.
All right, swinging ahead to the Sunday night game. This was such a weird game. The Miami Dolphins win 16-10 over the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the Miami Dolphins let the Steelers hang around the entire time. But really, I never felt like Steelers were going to win, ever. I was like, okay, they're just not. I had no faith in Kenny Pickett really doing it.
Dude, they dropped like 27 interceptions.
I know. It was such a, Tua played well for like the first 3 drives, and then that was kind of it for the offense. Yeah. Like they didn't score at all in the second half. Couldn't put the game away. But yet, the Steelers had 2 drives in the Dolphins territory at the end. Kenny Pickett finishes them both by throwing an interception. And there's going to be growing pains with this kid. I give the Steelers and Tomlin credit. They're not very good. They're not very talented, but they do play hard. They were in this game right until the end when they had no business being in this game. Really battled on defense, all that kind of stuff, but they just didn't get it done. I guess for the Dolphins, the one positive for the Dolphins is Tua was back. He was healthy. Took a couple of hits in this game.
He's going to get hurt again, man.
Oh, man.
I'm not even talking about concussions. He's just going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I saw
slide
what you saw.
To like, slide.
Slide.
It's.
I know, and it's funny because fans don't want to hear that because they want the quarterback who has guts and toughness and all these things. I totally get that, but when he came into the draft, I'm telling you, it was an amazing piece of information. I remember a guy saying to me, "I've never seen a quarterback who takes so many big hits in the college game." He's like, it's like he's getting trucked every single game, and this guy was just like, I don't know, like. There were other things that bothered him about the eval, but he was just like, dude, he can't keep getting hit like this in the NFL. Like he's gonna end up getting hurt. And this is all aside from the concussion comment, but we were saying, I'm like Chris Collins, or like everybody was sort of white knuckling it. I'm just like, what are you doing, dude? You're getting crushed. You can't do this. Concussions or not, you're gonna suffer a separated shoulder, or you're just gonna get hurt.
Self-preservation, man. Yeah. Come on, Tua. But I look, if you're the Dolphins, you're like, whatever. We got to win. Tua was a little rusty. Now we can kind of get our season back on track. We're 4-3.
Yeah.
Perfectly reasonable place to be right now in this NFL, especially. So I think the Dolphins feel okay about coming out of this with a win. It wasn't pretty by any means, but they do get the win. The Steelers are they're just kind of stuck in a bad season. It was never going to be good for them. Tomlin's streak of winning seasons is going to come to a close. I assume anyway. I don't know if they got the right guy in Pickett, but I agree with their decision. You got to keep playing them. I was on Pennsylvania radio this week. You got to go ahead with Mitch Trubisky. No, Mitch is Mitch. There's nothing there. But Pickett, showed some things, but he's still got a long way to go. They got to eval him. But just a weird game where it's like, okay, Dolphins win, good enough. Move on. You're 4-3.
All right, let's move on. Seattle, man, the first place Seattle Seahawks.
What in the world? Like, if you would have told me, like, yeah, Seattle Seahawks
crazy
going into Halloween weekend are going to be first place in the NFC West. What are you talking about?
They beat the Chargers 37-23 at on the road at the Chargers. Whatever, you can say whatever you want about SoFi. I'll let you break down the play, but like it is crazy. A lot of people talking about that turf. A lot of people talking about that turf because you get DK Metcalf goes down with a knee. JC Jackson, it was like a broken, sounded like it was like a broken leg. It was kneecap. It was a kneecap. Yeah, JC Jackson, it was dislocated kneecap. It was horrible. Mike Williams is a knee. Crazy. It's just crazy injuries to like extremely important players in this game. And a lot of people talking about that turf. And I'm telling you, I swear to God, I envision someday, I don't know when, I don't know what it's going to take, but I envision someday they're going to just go, we're not going to have turf anymore. Like we're getting rid of turf. Everything's going to be grass. And if you're in a dome, you're going to have one of those setups where you have grass that you roll out and you keep it outside. And then when games come, like Arizona, and then you roll it inside for the game. At some point, owners are going to get sick of doling out contracts like DK's contract or JC Jackson's contract or Mike Williams' contract.
You saw the JC Jackson play, and I don't know if everybody did. It was all of a sudden he's laying on a turf for a good time, like 10 minutes. Like you're like, whoa, what the heck happened? And they show the replay, and you're like, what was that? Like what happened? I didn't see anything. Like he just collapsed basically. It was just, it's not good. Have obviously you covered this league long enough, so you've walked on that turf before, right? It's weird. It feels weird under your feet and all that.
Yeah, the Matrix. It's called that Matrix turf. Helix turf or Matrix turf, something like that. Yeah, it's spongy.
You're not going to be a
real weird,
dude. No, it's not going to work for you. But yes, these injuries in this game are a big story, especially with the Chargers. The Chargers got to go ahead now. This was such a Chargers loss. Like, whatever, dude. What are you doing losing to this team at home? I know the Seahawks are better than expectation, but if you're a legitimate team, you got to win this game. And now you go forward with no JC Jackson, probably for the rest of the year, maybe, I don't know, for a long time. Let's just say that. Mike Williams' injury looked bad. His whole leg pinned underneath him when he went down. Yeah. If you're without those two guys for a while, with Bosa out, with Rashawn Slater out, it's not going to get much better for you. You ain't catching the Chiefs, I'll tell you that. So, yeah, bad day for the Chargers. And the Seahawks, I don't know. I've said this a million times. I always go back to my team previews, right? Because that's when I really dive into teams. Every year, Seahawks preview is the same. Where I look at that team and I'm like, you're doing everything wrong. You're drafting a running back in the second round. You're trading away Russell Wilson. What are you doing? You're screwing us all up. And at the end of the day, Pete Carroll always puts up, almost every year, double-digit wins, and he's on his way to surprising us all again. Geno Smith is one of the crazier stories in the NFL this year of how he's become a legitimate dude at quarterback. The Seattle Seahawks, they're really, really fun story just because I didn't see this coming. I know you didn't. Nobody saw this coming.
No, part of this too, again, I would urge people who don't follow the Seahawks to just go back and look at their draft. It looks like they've pulled multiple defensive starters, good defensive starters who are contributing, playing really well right now for the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker is
A+. He's
just
player,
sick. It's a joke. It's ridiculous. Like it is. I don't want to compare him to Emmitt Smith, but like when you look at it, you watch him play and kind of his body style, kind of what he is. He just is. I don't understand. And I went to, like Michigan State, I'm an alum. Like I watched him at Michigan State and it was the same thing. I'm like, I don't understand how he keeps breaking these huge runs. Like I watch and he's got good vision and everything, but it's not like he's 4.3 speed, it's not like he's like 240, 230, just wiping guys out. It's not just, it's just this mix of a lot of good things and just playing the running back position with great vision. And man, he's been fantastic. But I do, that's the thing. It's like, I think it's Geno Smith came through in a way that I didn't envision. And I feel stupid because this whole offseason, they kept talking about Geno and I'm like, what a bunch of liars. Like, I can't, really good source in the Seahawks organization. And I'm just like, you're out of your mind, man. Like, what? Like, it literally was hard to have conversations because it was so hard to not be like, I can't trust what he's saying about Geno. Why would I trust anything he's saying about anybody else on their roster? So there's that. And then again, an infusion of a bunch of young guys that are playing really well. And I'll say this for John Schneider, remember that Super Bowl team and the Legion of Boom and all those different things, they hit huge in the draft. It was like 2 drafts. Like they just absolutely nuked it in like 2 drafts. And they built the basis for a Super Bowl team. If they stack another great draft on the one they just had, and this is,
and they got all the Russell Wilson picks coming up,
and they got all the Russell Wilson.
They were drafting.
Dude.
If they the draft, I don't know. It's gotten better since last week. They were going to be drafting 7th overall with the Broncos pick.
It's the weirdest thing right now, man.
And now it's probably in top 5, like after the Broncos lose today. It's real quick. Does Seattle keep this up? Is this for real? Are they a 10-win team? Are they NFC West champs? Do you believe in them?
I mean, at this point, how can you? Like Frank. It's not fair because I keep looking for reasons not to.
Me too.
But like, I don't know. Like look, Arizona and the Chargers. They're not. These last 2 games have meant the most to me because they're not talentless teams. Now Arizona's completely mismanaged. They're jacked.
Yeah, sure.
Probably a firing. I wouldn't be surprised if Kingsbury ultimately ends up getting fired, even with the extension. That's probably the only thing that's keeping him viably in that job moving forward because of that extension. But they do have a lot of talent, and I thought that one was pretty convincing. And then this one to me was absolutely convincing. And I don't want to keep killing them, but like, again, this is another team where you look at them and you look at the remaining schedule, like it kind of looks like it's going to shape up to be a playoff team in the NFC. And I can't I'll tell you that bottom line, let's move on. I can't bag on Geno anymore. I can't. I can't because it's not fake. When I watch him and the throws he's making and the way he's leading the team and the energy he's playing with, I thought the greatest thing that I heard ever said about him was like 2 weeks ago. Mark Sanchez talked about when Geno Smith came in, and Mark Sanchez was like, I was like, oh, this guy didn't love football. Like, I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically was like, I didn't think he loved football. Like, I was just like, I didn't think he was going to make it because he didn't love football. When I watch him now, I'm like, everything about it looks legit to me. So
great story. Great story.
And you can find Frank at Yahoo Schwab on Twitter. You can get me at Charles Robinson, Brett Rader at Brett Rader. And please check out the mothership at Yahoo Sports. And as always, please help us keep Therese Paylor's legacy alive. Visit breakingtea.com. Visit breakingtea.com/Therese for the All Juice Tea or hoodie. Remember that proceeds from that purchase go to support the Therese Paylor Scholarship at Howard University. You can also contribute directly to that scholarship as well as the scholarship in his name at Power Mizzou by checking out the podcast description. And if you could, give us a 5-star review, tell a friend, grow the family, help us move forward. Stick around and listen to Frank kill off some other person who's died like 20 years ago.
Quarterbacks one by one. Like, hey. Bob Waterfield, where are you at?
Yeah.
Right,
come back for the compassion. We'll see you on Wednesday with a new episode. Peace.